Rowan gripped the iron fence post with a soft clank, his claws scraping against the rusted metal. Though his hands had once been normal, human hands, they were far from ordinary now. That was the price he paid every night, along with his close-knit group of friends. Around him, the abandoned funfair loomed as a kingdom of corroded rides and peeling paint, shrouded in the half-light of a moonless evening. Somewhere inside these silent ruins lay a secret that could break their curse, if only they could uncover it before dawn. He jumped down onto the cracked pavement on the other side of the fence, his senses sharpening. In his nocturnal form, he possessed the heightened sight, smell, and reflexes of a wolf, yet he was caught in a halfway state, neither fully human nor fully bestial. If he didn't find the object they'd come for, he and the others would be trapped in this limbo forever. A soft growl preceded a flurry of footsteps behind him. Jade, her breath ragged, sprang over the fence and landed gracefully at his side. Her dark hair glinted briefly, an echo of the once vibrant shade it possessed. Now, greyish fur melted seamlessly with her coat. It had started as faint silvery patches on her arms and face, but nights of repeated transformation had etched the texture deeper into her skin. "It's too quiet," Jade muttered, glancing around. "I hate it." Rowan nodded. He had the same eerie feeling. In the distance, one of the carnival banners fluttered, the only movement aside from the faint stirring of wind. Even the city's stray cats seemed to avoid this corner of town, now that the stagnation had stretched on for years. From behind them came another hush of shifting shapes. Sasha and Milo appeared, their silhouettes flickering in the dim glow of a lone street lamp that still worked. Like Rowan and Jade, they seemed trapped at the threshold between teenage humans and wolves, lithe limbs ending in paws, jutting jaws lined with fearsome fangs. Only their eyes, behind the amber tint, revealed the hint of youthful worry. The metallic smell of rotten metal and damp earth mingled with the faint scent of cotton candy left decades ago, a ghostly reminder of what the funfair used to be. Milo, the youngest of the group, flicked an ear. "I checked the southern gate. It's locked tight. No human footprints." "You must have missed something," said Jade, scanning the distance. "The caretaker might still be skulking around. Old rumors say he never left." Rowan held up a hand to silence them. "If he's here, we'll deal with him. The Moonstone is all that matters tonight." He turned his gaze toward the center of the funfair. The Ferris wheel towered there, a skeletal monument against the sky. Its gondolas creaked ominously when the wind picked up. Countless nights they had prowled these grounds, hoping to find the rumored stone. Each time, they left empty-handed, yet an instinct, stronger than the swirl of doubt, told Rowan they were close this time. They split into pairs. Jade and Milo veered left toward the bumper cars, while Rowan and Sasha went right, passing through a lane of stalls that had once hawked sweets and cheap trinkets. Each stall was ransacked long ago. Glass displays shattered, prized toys left to moulder, stuffed animals missing limbs. The neon lights that never fully died flickered overhead, lending the area an otherworldly gloom. Sasha sniffed the air. "Do you really believe tonight will be different?" Rowan paused. That question had gnawed at him for weeks. They were all exhausted from the transformations. Each sunset triggered the painful shift, and each dawn returned them to normal, only for the cycle to repeat the following night. They were a pack of teenage wolves, with one ill-fated destiny: remain in twilight forever, unless the legendary Moonstone could restore them. "It has to be different," he finally said. "We're running low on time. Tomorrow is the eclipse." She nodded. It was well known among them that the eclipse carried a terrible threat. If they failed to break the curse before the moon was fully obscured, their half-wolf bodies would become permanent. This funfair would then become a hunting ground they might never escape. They continued deeper into the gloom. A battered carousel rose to their right, and Rowan found himself drawn to its chipped horses. A memory surfaced of better days, bright lights, cheerful music, and the smell of popcorn. He recalled waiting in line for the ride with friends, back when they were middle schoolers. It felt like another lifetime. The pang of nostalgia lurched in his chest. They had discovered their shape-shifting powers that year, but only in glimpses. At first, it seemed so cool to shift slightly, to leap a bit higher, move a bit faster. They kept it secret, sharing wide-eyed grins and hushed excitement over their new abilities. Only after they tried to harness these gifts under one full moon did they realize they had been mistaken. Their transformations had spiraled out of control, leaving them trapped in forms they did not understand and could not consistently reverse. A faint scuttling shook him from his thoughts. Something scurried between the shadows of the carousel columns. Sasha tensed. Rowan flicked his ears, listening carefully. When no further sound emerged, they pressed on. They circled the wooden platform, scanning every nook, until Sasha pointed at a small open compartment near the central axis. She hopped onto the carousel, stepping carefully between the chipped figures. Stale air and dust launched into a faint swirl as she opened a panel in the center. She let out a low, frustrated growl when all she discovered were twisted wires. "I was sure we'd find a clue," she murmured, wiping her nose. Her delicate sense of smell was assaulted by dust. Rowan gently laid a hand on her shoulder. "Let's check the ride's machinery below. Sometimes these carnivals have secret compartments." They climbed down the small ladder that led into the ride's underbelly. The space was cramped, chaos inscribed on the rusted gears and circuits. Sasha flicked on a small flashlight strapped around her wrist. Its beam cut across tangled wires and broken motors. They moved about slowly, mindful not to brush against anything sharp. Shadows bent and stretched along the low ceiling. Nothing revealed itself, only rotted floorboards and machinery beyond repair. Just as they were about to climb back out, a distant yelp echoed. It sounded like Jade. Without hesitation, Rowan and Sasha scrambled up out of the carousel, adrenaline surging. They bolted across the cracked pavement toward the bumper cars, bursting past the stalls and a battered cotton candy kiosk to reach a wide, circular arena. Jade stood in the middle of the arena, hackles raised, her coat stiff. Milo, crouched beside her, stared in stunned silence as an unmistakable figure loomed at the edge of the rink. Tall and lean, it wore a ragged uniform with a name stitched on the front, some carnival staff member from ages past. Half its face was hidden in shadow, but an ancient, hollow stare sent an unpleasant chill through Rowan. The caretaker, or what remained of him, stood motionless. The figure lifted one arm, revealing bony fingers pointing at them. Even with their enhanced senses, none of the walls could detect a heartbeat from the caretaker. It was as though he were a spectre belonging to the echoes of the decayed funfair. Slowly, his mouth opened, and a rasping voice crawled out. "You seek the Moonstone." No question, an assertion. Rowan swallowed and stepped forward. "Yes, do you know where it is?" A dry chuckle escaped the caretaker. "The Moonstone remains where the carnival spirit died. You can search every ride, every booth, but it will not show itself until your hearts are laid bare to the place." Sasha's eyes flicked with fear and confusion. "You speak in riddles?" Another mirthless laugh. Then the caretaker turned, gliding away into the gloom without another word. Jade leapt forward to pursue him, but Milo caught her arm. "Let him go," he whispered. "He might vanish if we chase after him." Rowan tried to calm the group's growing frustration. It had been weeks of searching, of sifting through mechanical ruins, repeated disappointment every night. Now it seemed their only clue rested in a cryptic statement. Sasha frowned as she looked at him, seeking an explanation. Rowan forced confidence he didn't entirely feel. "He said, it's where the carnival's spirit died," he repeated. "When did people stop coming here?" "The night that fire broke out at the Haunted Mansion ride." "Yeah," Milo said, recalling the local law. "Kids got hurt, or so the rumor goes. Nobody wanted to return." "What if that's the place where the carnival's spirit died?" Jade asked. "It was after that event that people called this place cursed, before it even closed." Rowan's gaze found the northern end of the funfair. Through the drizzle of half-dead neon, he spotted the silhouette of an old Gothic structure, half hidden behind twisted trees and thick vines. That was the mansion amusements called the House of Frights. Sasha nodded grimly. "I guess we should go there." The pack made their way along the remnants of a stone path, the brittle shapes of broken tombstone props scattered about. Moonlight was faint tonight, blocked by clouds edging toward tomorrow's eclipse, and their own shadowy forms flickered. An archway marking the mansion's entrance had partially collapsed, forcing them to duck under the jagged rubble. Above the arch, a tattered banner still read, "Enter at your own risk." They stepped into the mansion's courtyard, where a dried fountain stood at the center. Once, it showcased a fearsome gargoyle spouting water into a murky basin. Now, the fountain had cracked, the gargoyle's face chipped. The faint odor of ash lingered, conjuring images of the catastrophic fire. Milo peered at the boarded-up doors ahead. "It doesn't look too stable," he said. Then, carefully, he pressed a clawed paw against the boards, testing. One gave way with a loud creak. "I don't think we have much choice," Jade said, her voice wavering just enough to betray anxiety. "Let's do this." Rowan braced his shoulder and shoved. The damp wood splintered and the door gave in. They stepped inside, quiet as ghosts. The corridor stretched out, cluttered with old animatronics and mannequins that once jumped out at unsuspecting visitors. Every step echoed with rotting floorboards. The smell of mildew wound around them, as though the mansion refused to let go of its tragic history. A single hallway branched in two directions. One led to a staircase that disappeared into darkness, while the other continued past battered sets of once spooky decoration. They checked each path systematically, listening for a clue, a sign, or feeling anything that could guide them. By the time they regrouped near the central foyer, frustration gnawed at them once more. Nothing in the mansion's labyrinth of cheap horror had offered a hint of a Moonstone. Jade looked ready to snap at the next animatronic skeleton. Milo simply stared at the floor, retreading the caretaker's cryptic words. Sasha cleared her throat quietly. Maybe where the carnival spirit died is more literal. The heart of the tragedy might be where the fire started. They wound their way back along the corridor, searching for telltale scorch marks or any sign of the original spark. On an inner wall near a set of old demon statues, they discovered blackened patches. A blast of memory or imagination seemed to fill the hall, a raging blaze licking the walls as patrons screamed in panic. The caretaker's presence seemed to flicker in the corners of their vision. Rowan stepped up to the sooty wall and ran his claws over the scorched boards. This might be it. He pressed, gently. One section gave way, revealing a hidden compartment behind the char. The group shared a collective intake of breath. Jade, crouching beside him, took a small crowbar from her pocket, an item she always carried on these hunts, and pried at the wall. The blackened planks cracked apart, crashing to the floor in a shower of ash. Hidden behind them was a small cavity, no bigger than a footlocker. Inside, a worn wooden box sat perched like a forgotten treasure chest. The box had a wrought iron latch, shaped like a crescent moon. Rowan flicked his eyes at the others. Their hearts pounded with anticipation. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the latch. Inside the box, resting on a rumpled piece of dark velvet, was a shimmering stone the size of his palm. Pale silvery light danced within its center, like a captured moonbeam. The pack stared in collective wonder. The Moonstone. With a trembling hand, Rowan picked it up. Instantly, he felt its power pulse through his body, resonating with the coursing magic that had turned him and his friends into half-creatures of the night. They waited, half expecting the caretaker to appear or some fresh danger to pounce, but the corridor stayed still, except for the quiet crackles of the old building. Sasha let out a relieved, shaky laugh. Jade's eyes seemed wet, reflecting the distant glow of the stone. "How do we use it?" Milo asked, breathless. Rowan looked down at his clawed hands and the stone nestled between them. We bring it to the place where the moon's reflection can reach it, he whispered, recalling the snippets of lore he'd pieced together from old newspaper clippings and local legends. Then, maybe we speak the incantation. Incantation? Jade asked, wrinkling her muzzle. Rowan nodded. We read from that old carnival ledger we found last month, the one that mentioned a lunar blessing. It might be enough. He glanced out a broken window, catching the faint silver of approaching midnight. We need to hurry. They left the mansion behind, carrying the Moonstone with them, a spark of hope ignited an urgency in their step. The caretaker was nowhere to be seen, but they could almost feel his silent gaze as they retraced their path to the carnival's center. The place that offered the best vantage of the sky was the tall platform near the Ferris wheel boarding area. Once a vantage for onlookers waiting in line, the platform's steps squeaked dangerously, but it held. At the top, the battered turnstiles angled out over the carnival grounds, giving them an unobstructed view of the heavens. Although the moon was partially obscured by drifting clouds, the faintest silver glow spilled into the carnival. Stars scattered the night sky in patches. Rowan placed the Moonstone on a ledge. Its interior light gleamed more brightly, as if in response to the moon's presence. The others crowded around. Jay took out the battered ledger they had found in the staff offices weeks prior. Most of its pages had been ruined, but a single paragraph referencing a lunar blessing had remained legible. She opened the ledger, her claws fumbling the delicate pages. Then she turned to Rowan. He steadied his breathing as he read the incantation in a hushed voice, speaking archaic syllables he barely recognized. The wind rustled through the funfair, stirring the Ferris wheel behind them. From a distant stall sign, decades-old carnival music seemed to whine, just for a moment, as if suppressed speakers coughed back to life. When the final word passed Rowan's lips, quiet reigned once more. A tense heartbeat of stillness engulfed the entire funfair. Then a beam of moonlight cut through the clouds, crisp and clear, illuminating the stone with a dazzling brilliance. The Moonstone began to glow, enveloping the ledge in silver radiance. The pack shielded their eyes as the light grew brighter until it threatened to blind them. A rush of energy hit Rowan like a thunderbolt, coursing through his chest and limbs. He heard the others gasp. Muscles tightened and bones shifted. The transformation that racked their bodies every night was surging again. Panic flickered. Were they losing control? But this time, the surge felt different, less painful, more like a wave of cleansing warmth. Rowan collapsed to his knees, digging clawed fingers into the platform. The curse fought back, but the stone's energy prevailed. He felt the coarse hair recede from his skin, his muzzle shrank, his fangs retracting into normal teeth. For the first time in many nights, normalcy returned to him in a swirl of faint, silvery sparks. Around him, Jade, Milo, and Sasha cried out in unison, each experiencing the same reversal. When the light finally dimmed, 4 teenagers were left kneeling on the wooden boards, blinking at each other in awe. Milo's voice trembled. "We're back." He looked at his hands, free of fur. He touched his face, now fully human. A grin replaced the previous apprehension, broad and irrepressible. Rowan stood up slowly, legs wobbly from the aftershock, and glanced over the edge of the platform at the funfair below. The rides were still decrepit, rusted and worn, yet in the faint glow of moonlight, the place looked less menacing. Small flecks of dust sparkled in the air, as though the carnival breathed out a final sigh of relief. "Are we free for good?" Jade whispered, stepping up next to Rowan. She was hugging the ledger to her chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. Rowan looked into the sky. For the first time since the curse began, he felt truly human. His heartbeat seemed in sync with the night sounds, no longer trapped in the frenetic energy that came with half-wolf senses. The Moonstone on the ledge was now dull, its light spent. He carefully picked it up. It felt warm, but the pulsing glow was gone. A hush lingered, broken only by the faint whistle of the wind around the Ferris wheel's skeletal frame. He clasped the stone in his hand. "I think the curse is gone," he said softly. Then he looked to the horizon, remembering that the eclipse would occur tomorrow. but that no longer held dread for them. "We did it in time." Milo let out a sharp breath and laughed, the kind of laugh only a freed soul can manage. Sasha pressed her fingers over her mouth, blinking back tears. Jade, trying to retain her composure, looped an arm around Sasha and stared out at the city lights in the distance. "Should we just leave this place?" Jade asked, an undercurrent of concern in her tone. Rowan glanced at the Ferris wheel and the broken amusements around them. The caretaker's words drifted back. Where the carnival's spirit died, the caretaker had known the secret, the dark truth that had bound the carnival and them in a cursed loop. Perhaps in freeing themselves, they had also freed the carnival from its final shadow. But there was still one more question now. Should they take it or leave it? After a long moment, Sasha spoke. "Maybe we release it here. Let the carnival rest." The logic behind her words rang in Rowan's mind. The caretaker's warning had carried a sense of guardianship. This place had once been a haven for joy until tragedy claimed it. Now that they'd found the lost Moonstone, it might only be right to let its power remain where it had always belonged. He nodded. "Let's find a place for it. Somewhere safe but part of the funfair. If it's gone, someone else might tamper with it or never find it again." He paused. "If we leave it here, the caretaker's spirit, if that's what we encountered, will watch over it." They descended the platform, hands still shaking from the wonder of being fully human again. Their steps felt unusually light along the cracked pavement, as if they'd shed years of weight in mere moments. Together, they moved under the Ferris wheel. At its base, behind tangled gears, they found a wooden chest half buried in debris, perhaps once used for ride maintenance tools. Carefully, they opened it. The interior was mostly empty, save for a few cobwebs. Rowan placed the Moonstone inside. "Thank you," he whispered to the stone, or perhaps to the caretaker. Then the group closed the chest and covered it with a discarded canvas tarp. For a time, they simply stood there, absorbing the quiet. The carnival's ghostly atmosphere no longer felt oppressive. A strange serenity permeated the air, as if the place was grateful and perhaps, at last, at peace. Their pack bond remained, but now it formed a new shape, not of a nightly curse, but of shared memory and loyalty. They made their way toward the exit, mindful of the shifting shadows but unafraid. Dawn was still hours away, yet the tension had melted from their posture. Even Jade, usually so cautious, wore a half-smile of profound relief. "Ha-ha," Milo said as they walked through gates still hanging off twisted hinges. "We'll have to come back and see this place in daylight sometime. Maybe it won't look as scary." Rowan chuckled. "I'll bet it'll still look like a wreck, just less haunted." "Think we'll see the caretaker again?" Sasha asked. Rowan shrugged, imagining that gaunt figure. Perhaps the caretaker's tether to the funfair had been undone by their successful quest. Or maybe he'd remain, silently ensuring the carnival's secrets were protected. It didn't seem frightening anymore, but rather comforting in its own bizarre way. They slipped through the fence, the clang of metal a final note. Once out, they paused in the alley beyond. Each of them had parents or guardians who'd been awaiting answers, or had gradually grown numb to the illusions that cloaked these nightly forays. Tomorrow, at least, they could meet them at breakfast entirely human. They would be free from a curse none of them had asked for, but each had faced together. Rowan looked up at the sky. The moon was still behind thin wisps of cloud, faintly bright but no longer foreboding. Tomorrow's eclipse felt like a new beginning. He felt new himself, more confident, no longer overshadowed by dread. A gentle wind lifted the edges of their jackets. They walked along the alley, their steps echoing across sleeping streets, away from the abandoned funfair. Though they were free, memories of the carnival would remain, a reminder that magic, both wondrous and dark, hid in the unlikeliest of places. A twinge of sadness mixed with relief in Rowan's chest. He hoped that if anyone else ever stumbled upon that old amusement park, they might glean the faintest echo of the laughter and joy that once thrived there. The caretaker's cryptic guidance still lingered in his mind. Sometimes, to save oneself, one must commune with the past, offering respect and honesty in exchange for release. Sasha took his hand. Jade and Milo linked arms. In their unity, they found a strength that would guide them forward. The curse had tested them, shaped them, but it hadn't defeated them. Their bond had broken the magic's hold. They disappeared into the city night as the final flicker of moonlight touched the funfair behind them. And if, in the silent corridors of that tattered carnival, a watchful figure still stood guard, it might have nodded in quiet approval, its vigil complete, before fading into the shadows with a job well done.